And right now we're finding that Odysee is carrying LBRY TV in the desktop app. So fortunately, our user base and community seem to like Odysee. If they don't like it, they're just continuing to use the desktop app or LBRY TV. But the number of LBRY TV users is shrinking.
Interesting. So you've seen a definite migration.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and obviously this would require a little bit of number ninja-ing, but have you seen Odyssey growth beyond what could be explained by a migration from library.tv?
Yeah, we're getting a lot of organic traffic. So part of the difficulty with promoting a product like LBRY TV, and this is separate from the desktop app,
Of course.
to creators, is they would struggle with things like the name. They would struggle when they would come to the front page and they would be bamboozled by the content displayed there. They'd see a lot of content that they didn't resonate with. There was a high level of complexity, and this was expressed by many high-profile creators. And by that, I mean not necessarily in terms of monthly views or sub count, but just uh, they had some household name value. So once we came out with Odysee, or at least began working with it, and were able to show it to creators, um, we were able to pique their interest because it looked familiar to them. The user experience was similar to YouTube as opposed to LBRY TV. In fact, we brought out some of the things we were working on exclusively for Odysee to LBRY TV first. But once we were able to address some of these things around branding, ease of use, we're able to capture the more broader market, which is what we wanted. Um, we so yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I suppose so. I did notice because it's been a little tight-lipped on the fundamental structural differences, so I figure it's like something for me to sort of suss out on my own. I did notice a few differences, such as supports not being nearly as visible in Odyssey, and of course, for those listening who don't know exactly how that works, basically you pledge library credits, or credits as they're now being called. You pledge credits behind a channel or a post or something, and then that raises their visibility on the tags that it has. And so, for example, in the other more, as you would say, more advanced user applications, it seems like you can check a box to make a tip permanent, as in you can actually donate to a creator, or you can just pledge that as a support behind that. And I did not notice that in Odyssey. And also, as far as like channel discoverabilities and things like that, there's a little bit of a sort of a top level domain struggle going on in LBRY where people find some basic keyword like say Bitcoin or BTC or whatever, and then they name their video that, and then they put enough credits so that it's at the very top of the search engine of the search whenever you look for a single thing. And I've noticed that top bit is not there in Odyssey either. So it's not so they're the basically the credit wars trying to pledge credits behind different things for very arbitrary, very easy to see real estate is kind of doesn't seem to be there, and that's one big thing I noticed.
Yeah, we're working on that. Until we bring it to, we don't want to bring that to Odyssey until we know how to eliminate the scamming of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's essentially why you don't see it just yet.
Yeah, and so discoverability is almost all done in the old school way of algorithms, etc. At this point, is that kind of correct?
Right.
Yeah. Do you have any plans to make an Odyssey mobile app that might not be like the library app that's kind of like the desktop app, but it's just like a YouTube type viewer?
Yeah, for sure. We haven't officially launched Odyssey as well, so yes, definitely, absolutely. Even beyond mobile app, we'd love to have some kind of OTT solution.
Yeah. And so what you're saying, it hasn't officially launched. So it is up there. Anyone can use it. but I have noticed
Right.
that the announcements have been relatively muted and towards the community. Uh, is there a time frame at which you kind of expect to have a full public launch where you send out press releases, get everyone reporting on it, etc., or is it just kind of a little bit more indefinite while you work out some kinks?
Um, well, we will know an official date from, I guess, we're expecting to hear from our PR
Mm-hmm.
partners later this week or next week. Um, until then, I don't really have any clue on that. I know we were speculating around 3 or 4 months, but I've even heard as late to 6 months. So we also, as a company, need a definite answer around that.
Yeah. So when it comes, obviously Odyssey is the video forward product, and obviously at the same time, LBRY supports all kinds of content types. And for example, for my own channel, I tend to be about 50-50 text articles and videos. And so obviously the text kind of stuff doesn't really show up too well on Odyssey. And so for that purpose, those links I tend to share for LBRY.TV when I'm sharing my content around. But
Right.
have you, how grand is the product offering scheme beyond Odyssey? As in, have you thought of like a blog type site that would be filter out most video content and be text files and things like that? Or I'm sure there's also been demand for an audio only podcast app, sort of like, say, an Anchor or something like that.
Yeah. On the question of text files, it's really about what's the most elegant way that we can deliver that type of content. We haven't figured it out just yet for Odyssey. You can still find text files, if you go to the actual channel, like you say, but we just don't have the answer around that yet. Um, in terms of a podcast app, no, there hasn't been any discussion about this sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, how has the response been? One more thing about the tags that I remember. One thing I notice
Mm-hmm.
is a lot of the people who have synced their previous channels to LBRY have, from the YouTube program, have sort of not taken off in viewership as much on LBRY.TV that I noticed. And sometimes they had significant amounts of credits pledged to the channel. And one thing I noticed
Right,
is very few of those channels actually had tags set up. And so therefore
right,
they weren't showing up in that kind of a thing. And I guess it's too early to tell with Odyssey, but I did seem to anecdotally notice a slight difference where even though, the same thing, it's just the auto sync doesn't auto set up the tags, but I did notice that a lot of those kind of synced YouTube channels were starting to get a little bit more exposure. Is that something you've noticed as well?
um, well, the first part around why they might not have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
viewership but plenty of staked. So these would be a lot of channels that have joined because they like what they've seen
Mm-hmm.
in Odyssey and they're waiting for a launch. They don't know anything about LBRY TV or LBRY, and that's one thing we have to keep in mind. A lot of new users that are coming um, to Odysee and they're using the LBRY protocol. They have no idea LBRY desktop app exists or LBRY TV,
Mm-hmm.
and that's only going to continue to be the case as more new users come in and more creators keep talking about their channel on Odysee. They don't know what LBRY is. Um, so that's part of the answer in terms of them appearing on the front page or getting more visibility. I can't answer that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
really understand how the algorithm is working.
Okay. Well, now back to the whole mass adoption wheelhouse, which is, of course, the buzzword of the day for just about any single blockchain based product. And while, LBRY and Odyssey have obviously expanded to be much less blockchain forward, it's still kind of the base of it all. And
Right,
so I think what it would be pretty I think it would be fair to say that you have experience being at the front end of what one would call mass adoption, which is, the TikTok world, which is, probably an example of how, one app or service could just become insanely addictive with regular people and just get a huge platform to where you have serious brands trying to invest in these small dancey kind of videos. And so what is one big lesson from that whole experience from the TikTok world that you think that we could use here in the blockchain world, or just specifically in Odysee, that you could try to bring that to make Odysee the kind of, maybe not TikTok level success, but maybe, or maybe not immediately. But what's one lesson from that old world that you would bring to the new world for success in onboarding a lot of users?
Um, I gained a perspective. It wasn't necessarily based on what we were doing at TikTok, but it was from, working on various things there and then coming up with ideas on what we should do better at LBRY. Um, I realized in the beginning the success that TikTok was experiencing was largely due to its commitment to non-celebrity like creators, independent
Mm,
type creators. It embraced the counterculture. And then as it grew and that sort of thing, it wanted to, um, have all the famous Instagrammers on its platform. It wanted Jimmy Fallon,
mm-hmm,
celebrities that you'd see on TV. And it kind of gradually was stepping away from, its core um, values as a
mm-hmm,
platform. Um, so coming to LBRY, first of all, I noticed that there was a very big lack of diverse content.
mm,
It was all crypto content or it was, political content.
mm-hmm,
So we needed to improve diversity. But in saying that, I also, from what I'd seen at TikTok and what I'd learned, I knew we needed to focus on not just bringing, established creators onto the platform, but rather what's the best way we can prop up some of these, I guess you could say, LBRY specific independent content creators that are just, um, their presence is mostly known on LBRY. They're big on LBRY. They don't know, they don't have much of a presence on YouTube or another platform. So how do we prop up some of these independent creators? Or conversely, how do we get somebody who's new as a content creator to come onto Odysee and actually grow as a channel and become successful, because they certainly can't do that on YouTube anymore because
mm,
YouTube's so corporate, and they won't be able to do that on TikTok or anything else like that. So a core motivation for Odysee and that we want to focus on, these independent content creators, came from, I guess you could say the mismanagement of what I'd seen at TikTok, in terms of our priorities of who we work with as creators.
mm-hmm. That is very interesting because I also remember the early days of YouTube as someone who was using YouTube before it was a Google product even. And there's a whole genre of content that just never existed before that platform, where you had just amateur videos or whatever. A YouTuber was a thing, and then when they started monetizing it, you could become wildly successful doing just random, very small time content kind of a thing. And it seems like that's sort of the same like people first content creator ground up kind of a thing, rather than the sort of top down, let's see who is already famous and promote them. And
Right.
one other thing that I thought was interesting is it actually a thought that might have actually fled my brain for a second. So you'll have to forgive me on that one. But
Mm-hmm.
let's just where would you like to see Odysee in the next year? Let's just say the end of 2021. What's a goal? What would success look like to you? Where at the end you sort of look back and just say, "Wow, that was it. We did it. We did it. More work ahead, but we definitely achieved something great."
What I would like to see by then, that's a great question. And, this is pure conjecture, but I'd like to see Odyssey fully broken into the mainstream. People know what it is. Um, uh, it's discussed as the most viable competitor to YouTube, still with its manifold problems. That's not going to go away by 1 year, but it's at least firmly established in a content creator's mind. At least you could say 1 in 3 creators outside of the whole LBRY universe has heard of Odysee, and this is it's a big dream, but I mean I'd love to see it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've got some great PR partners, and we're working um, well with our community. I think this community that we have at LBRY, I haven't seen anything like it. Um, I think it's achievable. Um, well, if it's not 1 in 3, maybe it could be 1 in 5. But I'd like to see Odysee in the mainstream for sure by that time.
Yeah, it's probably achievable, and based on my finger on the pulse of the way the world's going, it seems like just about everyone is tired of the official channels. Just about everyone's received a Twitter strike. Just about everyone has received some sort of a YouTube strike or demonetization or some sort of a hurdle to getting monetized or complained about how much money they're losing. And it just based on, it seems like the race to the top will be quicker than we might otherwise anticipate because of the competitors' race to the bottom. So,
Right.
yeah, here's hoping for a great flippening, as they call it, in 2021. So, what are you
Yeah.
most excited about coming over in the next couple months?
I'm really excited about you know us what the work we're doing with our PR partners. I think
Hmm.
it's going to be phenomenal. They've got some exciting plans to break out into the mainstream with stories about Odysee and this kind of thing. I'm looking forward to um, some of these things being ready for you guys to see,
Hmm.
which I can't get into
Of
because
course.
of the confidentiality of it. As a company, we're going to be growing as well. I'm excited about all of these things. Yeah, I know we're going hitting into, and this is why it's exciting, is because it's so close to Christmas, which
Yeah.
means that if we're able to get started on some of these big things, it shows that uh, we are actually growing. I'm also looking forward to some of the seeing which channels are organically being going to be joining Odysee and promoting Odysee, which is going to be fantastic. Some of the channels that have joined in the past few weeks, I wouldn't have dreamed that they could have found us on their own accord.
Hmm.
So that's fantastic. Um, yeah, I guess from a marketing perspective, there's a lot to look forward to in that regard, but also from a company growth perspective in terms of developing a new roadmap and growing as a team. That's also quite exciting.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, thanks very much for sharing your time, and I'll definitely be harassing you at some point in the future once more awesome things come out, and or if everything goes into a giant dumpster fire of chaos and failure, I'll also be trying to talk to you, but you probably won't want to talk to me then. But let's think happy thoughts because Odyssey does look great, and there's a definite need for the product, and there's a definite enthusiasm behind it, and a definite disdain for the top competitors out there in the centralized world. So yeah. Thanks again for your
Cool, man.
time and hope you have a great day.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. It was
Yep.
great to talk to you. See you later.